7.
Comfort crisis? Don't roast. Call Seacoast.
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL. In fact, they're totally different from what you're used to hearing on some of the big shows that we have here. That's what makes this show so special, because it's time now for the African American scene. And views expressed on the show are not necessarily those of WPSL, but you are encouraged to like and share them on Facebook, social media. You can even share the archives of the Rudy Howard African American scene on YouTube. Go to WPSLTV.com and find it. Subscribe, like, and share. And now, the African American scene on this Wednesday evening. Here's your host, Rudy Howard.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Always glad to be with you here on a Wednesday night. We're 20 days away. I guess we are 20 days away from the election.
That's all there is.
I think so, man. It's 20 days. I'll tell you what, I'll be one happy man when we get this behind us. I really want to put this behind us. Well, last week we talked about why are we so divided, and we didn't get a chance to finish the show, so I'm carrying it over to this week. So we're going to have a part 2 tonight, but I'm going to add 2 topics to this week's show. One, the Electoral College. I think the Electoral College is outdated, needs to be done away with, and is an affront to all that we believe in as Americans. It is the only vote in the entire United States where the majority of the vote does not automatically rule. From elementary school through high school through college, the majority of the vote wins, but not on a presidential election. Now, I'll give you a little history of why that happened. But I'd like your thoughts about the Electoral College. The other thing that I'm adding to this is, what are your thoughts about having this Supreme Court nomination now? Do you think it's right? I've looked at some of the polls, and it's interesting. Most people think this should not be taking place right now with the election 20 days away. By the time she is finally confirmed, we'll only be like 2 weeks away from the election. And somehow that doesn't seem quite right to me, but I appreciate your thoughts. That number again is 340-1590. That's 340-1590. Now, last week when we were talking about why we're so divided, I had a young lady call me, intelligent young lady, and she was complaining about the fact that there appeared to be a gross misjustice in how things are being portrayed in the media relative to race relations. And I hope she's listening and she'll call in again. I enjoyed our discussion, but let me just say this to you. Okay? You may be frustrated, but I will tell you, you can't possibly be as frustrated as we are, because growing up, we always heard about the disparate treatment of black folks in the community, and nobody believed us. everybody thought we were making it up. Everybody said, oh, booey, hooey. Then we got video.
Yeah, I was going to say that was before the advent of the cell phone with the record of video and post it on the internet or use it for whatever purposes you need it for.
Yeah, now with the video, the interesting thing is some people are saying it's too much. And we got Kurt on line one. Yes, Kurt.
Good evening, Rudy. It's been a few weeks since I've been able to talk with you.
Yeah.
I think the Electoral College is a necessary evil, and here's the reason why.
Okay.
If you allow the popular vote to elect a president, then you might as well people here in Florida and elsewhere might as well stay home, because New York and California are going to dictate the outcome of any election. Pure and simple, just by sheer numbers of population. And that was the whole reason, and I believe you're going to get into it, that the Electoral College was formed in the first place so that all states would have an equal share of the voting procedure. And the other comment you made is in regards, I'm a bus driver for the county, Rudy, and for the school system, and I have not encountered any of this so-called hate between the groups. I mean, we've got a large percentage of drivers for the Board of Education that are what are considered African American, minority, whatever you want to call them, and we all get along. I mean, I just don't see it as a problem.
Okay, well, let's go first things first, and I will, full disclosure, I won't give you his name, but my uncle is a bus driver, so he wouldn't agree with what you just said. But let's go first with the Electoral College. The origin of the Electoral College actually made sense at the time they did it. It was done on September 6, 1787. Now, why did they do it? They did it because at the time they were concerned that people might not have the information they needed to make a prudent decision about who to elect to office. And I think in 1787, that had to be true. There was no telephones. There was no internet,
no communication.
No communications. So if you go back and you look in 1787, that certainly makes sense that you would have to make sure that the vote was protected by people who were equipped and able to understand what the issues are. That's long.
I agree with that 100.
Okay, so that's long.
I agree with that 100%.
That's long been gone. That's been gone a long time, that you don't need that anymore.
Right. We have mass media, and the world knows within seconds what's going on the other side of the world. But what I'm getting at, Rudy, is you've got Los Angeles, San Francisco, you've got New York City. New York City, 8-10 million? And so you've got two states, and it's a fact. You can add up the numbers. If you take everyone over 18 years old in New York and California, they would dictate the outcome of any election.
So what's the solution? I got a solution for you.
The Electoral College.
No, that's not the solution.
It works.
No, it doesn't, because there is no way that Wyoming's vote should have the same relative weight of New York City or L.A. Shouldn't happen. Though they pay more taxes, they have a bigger investment in the country, they should have more to say. But let me tell you how you can fix it. What you have to do is, here's what the conservatives don't want to do. You've got to moderate your position so that you can gain broader acceptance by the public. If you moderate your position, it is no different than what Democrats did when most black people were Republicans. Most black people were Republicans in my father's time. All of them were Republicans. The Democrats figured out that in order to attract African Americans to the Democratic Party, they had to moderate their position on several items, and they did. And thus, the black people moved to the Democratic Party. Same thing's true for conservatives. If you want to be a pure conservative, you don't want to have to moderate to speak to all the people. That's your problem. The Electoral College shouldn't protect you for that, because an election is about the best ideas win. The person with the best ideas and the best position should win the election. Shouldn't be manipulated by voter suppression.
Well,
shouldn't be
agree.
manipulated by Electoral College. So if you wanted to get people from New York and California to support the conservatives, and it has happened in the past, you have to moderate your position.
Well, I agree. I agree with that in principle, Rudy. But what we need to do initially, we need to start in Washington, D.C., both sides, because there's corruption and evilness on both sides. And what they need to do is get in there and start weeding out. There's no reason Nancy Pelosi should have a 38 years as a politician, 47 years for Joe Biden. You know, we need to start basically with term limits, and then I think you could have this more open discussion between both sides of the fence. You got a guy that's only going to be him or her is only going to be in the office for 6 years, let's say, and that's it. They have to, after 6 years, they're out. If they want to go back in, they got to wait another 6 years. Then you're going to have the people, as our founding fathers wanted it, and that is go to Washington, represent your area of the state or county or whatever, do what you feel you need to do, and then go back home. And that's what we need to do, Rudy. We need to get these. There's no absolute reason in the world that Nancy Pelosi and all the rest of that gang are multi-millionaires on a $174,000 salary.
Okay.
There's something rotten in that barrel of apples. That's all I got. You know.
Okay. Well,
and I would agree. Let the candidates speak and let the people speak, but not until we change the system.
Well, why do we have to? I mean, you're putting the cart before. Why shouldn't you have to speak? The candidates should have to speak to the people. The candidates should have to speak to the people. Now, you know, let me say this to you about what you're saying. I do think there's some merit in having term limits, okay? I'm not going to argue that point with you. And you guys on the right sometime get on a certain bandwagon and you ride that to the end. Now, right now, you talked about Nancy Pelosi. So now tell me what Nancy Pelosi has done that makes you think that she's such an evil person.
Well, she takes advantage, and all of the politicians can do this. She took advantage of insider trading information to make a lot of money. She also, I don't agree, Rudy, that these people should be diddy-bopping across the country at taxpayer expense on chartered airplanes and campaigning on the taxpayer dime. We pay for all of that campaigning, and they do it on the taxpayer dime. That's got to stop. You want to run for an office, you find somebody to finance it. Don't have the taxpayers finance it. You know, and that's not a 365-day-a-year job for a senator. They don't spend that much time in Washington. I mean, we need to change what's going on in Washington, Rudy. And then I might entertain a thought about letting a one vote per person to determine it. Until that happens, I say we should stick with the Electoral College.
Well, see, that's just the opposite. In my opinion,
and
that's just the opposite, because when you're forced to have to modify your opinion to gather the vast majority of the people, that's a game changer. If you can stick to your point without any modification and still think that you're going to get in office because of redistricting or because of the Electoral College, then there's no reason for you to compromise, and then there's no reason to come to agreement with the other side. See, you got to get to the point where there has to be a point at which there's a motivation for you to come to agreement with the other side. One of the things I think that has really hurt us bad, and then I got another caller I got to get to.
Well, I have to go too, so.
Okay. Well, thanks for calling, Kurt. You can call back again, please. But I'm gonna say this, and we got Steve. Steve, you can come up. But let me finish this thought. One of the things that used to happen before they started working 4-day weeks and go home every weekend to wherever they're from, they used to have to stay in Washington. They had dinner with each other. They played cards together. And as you've heard me say here for the 9 years I've been on here, it's pretty difficult to have grievance with somebody that you've come to know. So they don't know each other anymore. On Thursdays, they leave and they go home. And Steve, yes, sir.
How you doing, Rudy?
Okay.
I'm one of those guys that thinks with the left side of my brain, and this is a very simple, easy thing to solve. 100 million people who were eligible to register and vote did not in 2016, nor have they in 2020. Okay, voting is a right. Driving is a privilege.
Yes.
Why don't you just simply pass a law that says that if you don't register and vote in elections, then you don't have a right to drive an automobile? That's a privilege.
That's a good suggestion.
I mean, let's face it. People do you want to drive your car all year, or do you want to take a half an hour, wait in line and vote? The other thing is, I go to meetings, school boards, council. There's 500 seats there. 490 of them are empty.
Yes.
200,000 people in the city alone. Where are they?
Yes, I've been there. I know. There's a few people in there.
You can't blame the politician. You have to blame the person sitting at home on their butt, just running their mouth at the coffee shop or at the pool, but not running their mouth in front of the council or the school board or their senator or whoever, where is effective. They just run off with the mouth locally, and that's not going to solve the problem.
Yeah.
As far as this synthetic, the herd theory, just think of it. Right now we have a 3% death rate. If we went this way, we'd lose about 6 million people.
I know.
If we only have a 1% death rate, we would still lose over 30 million people. Or I'm sorry, 3 million people. With 1%, we would still kill 3 million people. Now, is anybody ready to go to heaven quickly? You want to line up, volunteer? There's a song out there that says, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to go first. So,
yeah.
But what I'm saying is, it all boils down to the people. Remember, the Constitution starts out, we the people.
Yes.
That's how it starts out. And everybody else starts it out, we the party.
Yes.
If you need a party to make a decision, you need help. You're kind of sick or not too smart. If you can't sit down in this day and age and research a subject or a person or whatever and convince yourself, then, forget it. I've never been a member of a party. But this year I did vote already in person. I mean, I went down and got an absentee ballot and voted right there. I stood right there and voted. But it's one of those things where I'm so disgusted I couldn't wait to get there.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And
There's a lot of people like
this.
There's a lot of people like that. If you look, there's lines everywhere. Lines in Nevada, lines in Georgia.
When you have people waiting 5 to 11 hours
Yes.
to vote in person,
Yes.
that's not a tidal wave. That's a tsunami.
Oh, I agree. I agree.
And you're going to see a tsunami, at least in numbers.
I think so.
But I think if you check, the Democrats outnumber Republicans 2-1 in voting. That's
Yes.
a registered voter.
Yes.
So if there's a heavy Democratic turnout, I mean, other than counties where they have 700,000 people in one box to drop off, you know, where it's rigged. But, the guy in Texas, he did the greatest thing.
I have said that, and I know somebody's ready to jump on me about this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I predict a historic whooping is about to happen on November 3rd. I think people are just fed up completely. Now, he's got his diehard 40% out there that's going
Oh, yeah, and I've got a couple of those in my neighborhood, the evangelistics, but I've also got a lot of Republicans. I live in an upper-scale neighborhood. A lot of Republicans who have said, I'm just fed up.
Yes.
It's not a fact that I'm a Republican. It's the fact that I'm an American.
Yes.
And I'm fed up, you know, and there's Republicans who are voting for Trump. Look at the ads on TV, Republicans against Trump, sponsored by, you know.
Now, you're a little bit older than me, but, I mean, we've both been around a while. When have you ever seen in your lifetime when there's groups, not a group, but groups of people of the party of the president banding together to defeat him? I've never seen that before. Have you?
No, I haven't. But I have seen before a president who employs like the Queerons or somebody like that to start trouble in the peaceful protests.
Yeah.
So that the violence can start with the police and the military.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've seen that up close and personal. You know, I grew up in politics on a high level.
Yeah.
And I know things go on that are dirty pool. But the point is still the American people themselves, each and every one of us. We have to stand up, go to the meeting, make the call. I mean, you're on your phone 10 hours a day. You can't take 10 minutes and call the congressman.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, speed dial. You know, so I'll let you go. But
Okay,
I mean,
Steve.
people need to think about it. This is a historic election. If it goes the wrong way for about the next 50 years, America is going to be a fascist country.
Yeah, I agree.
And you take care. Stay healthy.
Okay, Steve, you do the same. Okay. Yeah. He's seeing the same thing I'm seeing. I've seen people
He said he's a Republican.
Who?
Steve.
No, no.
Oh, okay, because
that's the other Steve.
Oh, because he said he's seeing what you're saying.
Yeah, he's seeing what he said he's seeing in his neighborhood. There are Republicans that are saying that they're not going to vote for Trump again. And what I was saying is I have never seen in my lifetime where groups have banded together to go against their president. I just haven't seen that before. And he hadn't seen it either. And we got Winnie on line one. Yes, Winnie.
How you doing? Yeah, people, vote.
Yes.
Yeah, if Joe Biden have his win, They fed up with. They fed up with my president. They
Yes,
fed
he
up
is.
with him.
They fed up with your boy.
Fed up with my man.
Yeah, they fed up with your man. Yeah.
Well, that's good. I see it on the TV. Georgia, those folks coming out in novels. They coming out in novels. They're different everywhere. That's good. Put my Barack Obama all over again. Little people that came out in novels.
Yeah.
Put Barack in there. You heard about this here, this guy in Atlanta, Florida here, African-American guy. They found him Sunday morning. Somebody found him hung on a tree. You heard about that?
Yes, I saw that. I haven't seen anything further on it. They hung him. He was, I saw that. It was a lynching.
Why people still doing this?
You know what? Right now is a very scary time because people are so angry. People are confused. People are upset. And sometimes people are angry. They don't even know why they're angry. But part of what happened, and I said this a couple weeks ago, and a guy called up, and he was really mad at me for saying it, but President Trump allowed some of the racists who had been in the basement quiet to come out of the basement and into the sunlight. And I'm not saying all Trump supporters, because I know you're a Trump supporter. I'm not saying all Trump supporters are racist, but he allowed the racists to come from the basement into the light. And that's a problem. That is a very serious problem that I think is troubling our country right now. So
they have found two in California. They got hung too a couple of months ago. They said like 50 miles apart.
I saw today. One of my Facebook friends, he had a Biden-Harris sign in his yard, and he got a card that was left in his mailbox that said, "You got a visit from the KKK. Hope we don't have to come here and do business with you." And he showed us on Facebook. He showed a copy of the card that was left inside his mailbox, and I was like, "Wow, that was pretty deep." But I'm just saying, see, that's now. Just think about it. In our lifetime, Winnie, stuff like that 10 years ago, that stuff was kind of gone. You didn't hear about stuff like that. Stuff like that wasn't happening because that kind of behavior was unacceptable. See, and this is what I'm saying, and for those of you that want to call up and get on me, what happened was that behavior became unacceptable. So people didn't display it. What this president has done has allowed that behavior to be acceptable. And it's not all of you. I'm not saying all of you. Not for 1 minute do I think every person that supports Trump is a racist, but he has allowed that behavior to emerge into the sunlight and be acceptable.
And you know what, Rudy? That they angry. I thought them about the protest about George Floyd, and they just angry.
Yes.
But something else I want to say right quick. They had to catch them guys by themselves. What you say? They were walking by themselves, and they caught them by themselves. Like nobody don't be with them when that happened. Nobody don't see anything.
Yeah. You talking about the Ahmaud Arbery case?
I'm talking the guys that get hung on a tree. Look like they walking by themselves or something.
I know. That's
and
pretty.
nobody don't see anything. You know, could get the camera and video, a video to hang, something. Like they check about themselves or something. Something don't sound right with that,
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like they might be walking by themselves, like they get about themselves or something. I don't know. We don't know the whole story, look like that, but that's kind of strange the way how they doing that.
Yeah, now that you reminded me of that, I'm gonna see if I can't follow up on that story again tomorrow and see what happened with that. But yeah, I remember seeing that story. He was lynched in Orlando. Yes.
Okay, we'll be talking. I have a good night. Bye-bye.
All right, take care. Yeah. So, yeah, Cliff, what she's talking about, I saw that story and I haven't followed up on it, but there was a black man that was lynched in Orlando. So, but there's a lot of anger, and part of the anger, and this gets back into my subject of why we're so divided. There is a shift in the population and the demographics in our country. And I think some people are very unnerved about the shift in demographics. This is going from a predominantly white nation to a not predominantly white nation, and that's happening quickly, more quickly than many people are comfortable with, because I heard the statistic the other day that in 2016, 70% of the vote was from whites, and they're projecting for 2020 that it's going to be 68%. So there's been that shift just from 2016 to 2020. So, yeah, so, and we have Ken on line one. Yes, sir.
Hi, Rudy. I'm kind of glad you brought this up because I was going to ask you about this.
Okay.
This is from a book you read, right?
Uh-huh. What's that?
About whites being afraid of the increase in minorities.
Yes. Well, I've read several books about that, but yes.
Okay. I had a question about that. Are they talking about all whites, or just conservative whites, or Republican whites, or Democratic whites?
I think the statistic is all whites, but not all whites are fearful of the change in demographics. That's for sure. I got friends that are unfazed by that completely. Then I know other people that it's being pretty upsetting to them. The shift.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
I was just wondering about that because I wanted to know if it was if you thought more conservatives felt that way than liberals.
Yes, definitely. The answer to that is
definitely. The writer of the book felt that way.
Well, definitely. Matter of fact, there was a excuse me. There was a short film that I saw on Facebook this week that was awesome, and it showed the thought process of white evangelicals versus black Christians. And he attempted to explain why white evangelicals voted Republican and why African American Christians voted Democratic. And he does a really nice job with it, and it's only about 15 minutes long. But part of what his explanation is that the evangelicals, the white evangelicals, do not want change. They resist the change, and that's very troublesome to them. And that's part of what I have read too, that the number one issue for a lot of whites, conservatives. Not for liberals. Most liberals that I know, that they don't even think about it. You know, I got friends that don't even think like that. So that's just what I see. What about you?
Well, yeah, I'll tell you what. This is the question I had. This is why I brought up the question. If that's true, why would these conservatives be against abortion? And then on the left, they're in favor of abortion.
Well,
it would seem to me it would be the opposite if that was true.
Well, no, because think about it. If the conservatives are against abortion, they do not want to diminish the size of their population. And let me just say this, because this is important. Blacks are not in favor of abortion. Most blacks are in favor of choice, and that's the difference. And I you know, I frequently have to debate people about that. That I don't have any friends who are pro-abortion. Matter of fact, most of my friends are not in favor of abortion, but most of my friends are in favor of people having the choice. Does that make sense to you?
To some degree, it does. Let me give you some statistics here. I'll tell you what bothers me about the race issue here.
Okay.
Since 1973, there have been between 41,000 and 42,000 blacks shot by police for all reasons, total. That includes justified shootings, unjustified shootings, accidental shootings. There's been between 41,000 and 42,000 deaths by police officers shooting blacks. In that same time period, 19 million blacks have been aborted. Now, I think that's quite a big number of voter suppression.
Okay, I get your point. I don't have the statistics.
So
but
I understand. I totally understand the problem with the police, and it's not. I for a long time have not agreed with their tactics, and I think that needs to be fixed. But I don't think that's the main thing. We ought to be talking about single parent homes.
So why do you think there are so many single-family homes? Now, just so you get the actual picture here, because I had to do some research on this not long ago, there are more white single-family homes than black. The percentage of black single-family homes is larger, but the actual number of single-family homes, there's more white people than black. Do you believe that?
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Because it's 67% to 13%.
Okay, all right. So, let's start with that. Now, then I don't want to go give you a long history lesson, but for the 300 years that we were enslaved, and I know there's people on there going, oh, God, is he going to go back there? No, because I have to, because you have to understand this. They were not allowed to develop a nuclear family structure. You understand that, right? That, you know, you weren't allowed to get married unless the master said it was okay. Right. And if the master wanted to take your wife to the shed, there was nothing you could do about it. If he wanted to take your daughter to the shed, there was nothing you could do about it. And frequently, he gave slaves to his children for wedding presents. So now let's think about that for a second. So that went on for 300 years. How long do you think? Okay, so how long do you think it would take?
Wait a minute. From when to when? You said 300 years?
Yeah.
That started when?
1619. It's
Okay,
probably more than 300 years, but I'm just saying 300 years. I'm just rounding it off at 300.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm just rounding it off at 300 years. How long do you think it would take to overcome that level of adjustment to a nuclear family, the likes of which everybody else had enjoyed? Because in 300 years, you had people that lived, died, and never saw anything different. How long do you think it would take for that to go away?
Totally?
Yeah.
Well, obviously more than 200 years.
Yeah, I will tell you this. There are still vestiges of that exist today, and I'll tell you why. Okay? When every immigrant culture that's come to our shores, what they had to depend on was their family. Okay? Whether you was Italian, Polish, no matter how bad the circumstances were, they had each other to lean on. They had a family that they could count on to go through the good or the bad times with as they were transitioning into the American life.
Right.
Slaves didn't have that.
Right. I understand you. You're right. Absolutely right.
Okay, so now, since they didn't have that, there was a natural distrust that was created between slaves themselves. That has lingered. We are doing better than I can ever remember in my lifetime, but that is a problem that still exists because...
You mean because the one that was afraid of the other one might turn him in or something?
Well, all kinds of different things. You had some people that worked in the house, and those that worked in the house and didn't have to work in the field were resentful of the people. The people in the field resented the people that worked in the house that didn't have to go out in the field and sweat. You know, so then you had
right.
you had the master who decided that he had his favorite woman, and she got a different treatment than the other women that was on the plantation. I mean, all those things that happened. So you had a natural development of jealousy that was created. So now you had no nuclear family. You had a natural antagonism that was created between slaves on the plantation. So all of that has had a impact. Now, in addition, most women were responsible for raising the kids because the men frequently were sold in the market for more money. Okay? And now I'm going to give you the next issue. And you can easily look this up because you sound like you do some research. You have about 40 to 42% of the prison population is African American men. And we make up 13% of the population. How's that possible?
That's part of the justice system that needs fixed.
Yes, I agree. But they're the fathers. There's where the fathers are. The fathers are there.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying to you? So when you ask, you ask, where are the fathers? Too many of them have been incarcerated. So I don't want to go on and on, but I just thought I'd give you some perspective.
Let me make some points here.
Okay.
I want to make some points about slavery.
Okay.
And then I want to compare it to something else, and because this disturbs me.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, slaves, they had poor housing conditions. They had to face violence, including murder.
Correct.
They had no education, or very poor education.
Correct.
At all. And they had no hope. They were in a situation where they had no hope. You know, I'll agree with that.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
They made hope, but go ahead. You're right. For the most part, no hope.
Okay. All right. Now, let's go to Baltimore, for instance. Poor housing. Yeah, check. Violence. Subject to violence. Yeah, check. Poor education. Check. No hope. Check. Why has that not changed?
Do you think that are you equating the conditions in Baltimore to slavery? You think they're the same?
I'm saying they have the same. They have those same 4 things that plague them. We're talking about major cities in the United States, mostly controlled by Democrats for 40 or 50 years or more.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying that you're giving me the Trump argument that all of the Democrats.
I don't know what this is the Trump argument.
Well, that's the argument he makes all the time, that the cities are controlled by Democrats, and the cities are all useless and in terrible condition. That's your point, right? Is that your point?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
You want to know? Let me give you one more statistic.
Okay.
The United States ranks 3rd in the world in gun violence. If you take out 5 cities in the United States, we rank 127th if you take out those 5 cities in the world in gun violence.
Well,
those cities all run by Democrats.
So are you suggesting that the cities are a breeding ground for violence?
I'm suggesting that there's something going on here, and I think the Democrats are taking advantage of the black community. I think you have poor leadership in the black community. I don't think Al Sharpton is a house black person that you were talking about.
Well, let me just say this to you, okay? The issues that exist in the city are caused by a lot of different things. One of the things is in cities like Baltimore and New York, there's a book called The Color of Law. And this professor goes in and he explains how they systematically locked out black folks from being able to get property and to get fair housing. And he also points out in the book how some of the places that have become what you call quote-unquote ghettos were originally built for white persons, and they turned them over to black folks after they were able to move out to the suburbs. So
Okay. So who are you talking about? Who turned them over? The government, right? People in charge.
Well, it was a combination of things in terms of moving some work facilities out of the cities to the suburbs, and then the people that were in the cities had no transportation to get to the suburbs. And you do have a Massachusetts. Yeah. You have a Massachusetts accent.
Sounds like home to me.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. I have a Southern accent, really. South Boston.
South Boston.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. South Worcester County is like that too.
Yeah, I lived in Worcester. Okay, but anyway, so what you're trying to say is that the cities are a place where blacks have been treated poorly, but there's some beautiful aspects.
Rudy, what I'm trying to say is Democratic policies have not helped the black community.
That's not true.
And Democratic, let me give you another example.
Well, I'm just going to tell you that's... Go ahead.
Democrats always promote the minimum wage.
They get what now?
South Africa, the minimum wage.
Mm-hmm.
In South Africa, the minimum wage was used to prevent blacks from getting union jobs, good union jobs.
Well, here's what I'm going to tell you about that, okay? You way off on that. Now, I'm reading a book right now called Evil Geniuses by Kurt Anderson. And he goes through the economic decline of the country, and it got nothing to do with the cities. It has to do with the calculated plot by conservative think tanks who saw a way to add more money to their coffers and less money to the middle class. And he spells it out year by year. I'm about 3/4 of the way through the book, and it's just absolutely amazing. So the conditions that exist largely have been created because of greed by the upper corporations and the upper class. For example, I'm going to give you one example that you can think of right here. During this pandemic, 12 corporations, I gave this statistic about 2 weeks ago, made $1 trillion while everybody else was losing jobs and having to stand in line for food. So that is a problem. And that has nothing to do with the city. That has something to do with the greed at the top of the people who are making the money. But I'm coming to the end of the show. Thank you for calling. Call back again next week.
All right, Rudy.
Okay? Appreciate you.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So that book, I was talking about Evil Geniuses by Kurt Anderson. If you want to learn something about our economy and how the middle class has been destroyed, read that book. It will help you. But in any way, I'd like to thank you so much for tuning in to the African American scene. God bless and be safe, and I will see you next week right here for the African American scene.
Don't miss the next episode of the African American scene with Rudy Howard every Wednesday evening in the 6 p.m. hour. Brought to you by Howard Insurance in Port St. Lucie. Archives of this show are on YouTube under WPSL TV. This is WPSL, Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.